Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Power Sessions with Natasha. I'm back with another video. I want us to talk about, what was our name as a people on the continent before the word Africa? Because there's a lot of dispute about this word Africa and Africans, because some history teaches that Africa was named by Greeks or Romans, that these colonialists came and named us. We were waiting for them to name us. I don't think so. It's estimated that there are about 6,000 languages in the world. 3,000 of those are in Africa. If languages that have faded, which they have, are counted, Africa has had more languages in the world than the present total number. So we were just waiting for somebody to come and name us. One of the oldest names of Africa is Alkebulan. This name has been interpreted as meaning mother of nations or mother of mankind. Many theories about who named Africa have been thrown about. Many theories. Some disputed, some not disputed. Some say that the name is from an Arabic name or word called Afrikia. Some say Africa was named by a Roman soldier called Scipio Africanus. Some say the name Africa, or for Africa, came from Leo Africanus. But when we look at Leo Africanus, this doesn't make any sense, because the date that he came into Africa was too late for him to have named Africa, because the Romans and the Greeks were long gone by then. This African young man was a scholar. He was a young man who was taken into slavery and was later gifted to Pope Leo X. This Pope, Pope X, realized that this young man had a brilliant mind. And he thought, no. So he released him from slavery, and during his lifetime, Leo Africanus is said to have traveled into Timbuktu, which is in Mali, and Songhai, which is present-day Nigeria. These were very powerful kingdoms he traveled through. He patriotically associated his name with the great continent of his ancestors, which is Africa. But the forces of European imperialism had begun to inflict the continent through the transatlantic slave trade by the time that he got there. So it doesn't make sense to attribute the naming of Africa to Leo Africanus. The Greeks occupied Africa in 332 BC. They were followed by the Romans in 30 BC. So these imperialists had long left when this brilliant scholar was being born. So it doesn't make sense to credit him for that. Even when we look at Kemet, ancient Egypt, it was occupied by Arabs in 461 AD, and when we look at the naming of the people of Kemet, now we're going into origins. The Kemetic people called themselves Kemiyu. This means black people, So we are not going to get into the cusp of things, originality. Greeks had earlier called Africa Afrik, as they could not pronounce the existing name, which is Afriuka. The Greeks had already failed to call Kemet or ancient Egypt by its original name, which I am going to try and pronounce, which is Haut Kapta. They corrupted this name into Aegyptos, while the Romans followed with Egyptus in their Latin language. They couldn't couldn't say the original name of the Kemet, So the Greeks and Romans name for Kemet translates into Egypt. When you look at both of them, when I just said them, they both translate into Egypt. So the indigenous African name, which they couldn't pronounce, completely broke their jaws. They thought, we're not going to pronounce that. So they couldn't pronounce this name. And what they did is they then called it Egypt, which is the present day name. It is not the original name. This was named after Romans and Greeks. In fact, the study of Egypt and, should be called chematology, and they should be called chematologists, because Kemet was the correct name, for the ancient Egypt. The Romans and when they came into describing Africa, they described it as the land of Afri, of Afetera, which meant land of Afri, land of black people. The names Afer and Afar are Phoenician. Phoenicians were descendants of Canaan, son of Ham. They also spoke of Afri tribes. This was long way back in the BC period when Africa was advanced more than Europe. Yes, we were more advanced than Europe. They try and lie, they try and take that away from us, but we were. And these Phoenician names also meant land of dust, but it's not clear whether they meant ordinary dust or the dust from which, the religions say God created humanity from. Other indigenous people of Africa have also used the name Afri or Ifran. But the ancient language of Kemet or Egypt called Africa Afriuka. It means the opening of Ka. Ka means soul or spirit. It also means the place of birth. However, some African languages seem to have all agreed on the words root, af, ifran, afer, afar, and the list goes on. When we look in Tanzania, Tanzania is the original name of South Africa. There is a common root called Ntu, Nto for African languages, demonstrating that they came from a common stock. So remember the common stock. An example is how ancient Africans called their countries after the color of their skin or language. And we can go through the people of Kush, Kemet, Nubia, Numidia, Kathadas, Azania, which all meant black man's country. These are examples of our ancestors naming our lands black man's country. In Africa, especially in South and Central Eastern Africa, any human being was Umtu, Monto, Muntu. This is in Xhosa, Sesotho, and Zulu languages. Their common philosophy is Ubuntu. When it came to land, it could be according to the language of the people. So whatever land you lived in, it could be, you were the Venda people according to the land you live on. You could be the Swazi people because of the land you live on. The Sesotho people, Sepedi, Setswana, Shona, Sindebele people. But when it came to the whole country, it was described as a land of black people or black man's country. You hear people saying Izwe labantu, Ambantundu, or Abanyama, or in Shona we say Vanuvevu. These are like Sesotho, Nguni, and Shona languages. In Sesotho, all Africans are called Badaba, Tari, and Koso, meaning children of the black mother. So there seems to have been this commonality when the ancestors of Africans named Africa. It's to do with the color of the skin and the land. This was long before the Greeks and Romans knew anything about this unique continent, this beautiful continent that is still beautiful today. Africa was the prime source of the world's people, language, myths, symbols, and religions. You understand? The name Africa is very much disputed. But what we do know is we did name ourselves way before all these people came, when we had over 3,000 languages. Africa became known to Europe through the Greeks and the Romans, but these Europeans had heard of us. They'd already heard what we named ourselves when they came, Greeks and Romans were drawn to the glory and riches of pre-slavery and pre-colonial Africa. Of course they were, Those were the days when Julius Caesar was heard in adoration and admiration of Africa, the mother of nations, the Alkebulan. Africa, he used to say, I don't know if everyone has ever heard him, this saying that he said, out of Africa always comes something new. We named ourselves. And we also have the Roman scholar Pliny, the elder. He said there is always something new coming out of Africa. Something new is always coming out of Africa. The view that that somebody came and named us and we waited for somebody to come and name us is absolutely ridiculous. There are names of people, scholars, writers, researchers. I'm going to leave some links of books you can look at and learn in the description box below. Some people will dispute what I've said, but I'm open to a discussion. Let's have a discussion in the comment section. But what we have all realized through this video is that our ancestors named what? Countries and lands according to what? The skin color. That is what they would do. Skin color or language. If you were a piece of land, you were the Venda people. If you're on a piece of land, you were the Setotho people. If you're on a piece of land, you were the Shona people. But if it was the whole country, it was called Black Man's Land. The land of black people. So, are we going to call ourselves Kemeyu? What are we going to call ourselves? I want to have a discussion about it. So, leave some comments and let's have a discussion. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye.